Well, it happened. Good old crappy tents. It's just what they do. Get down. We got most of it on, so it's looking pretty good. Unfortunately, I ran out. So I ended up having to borrow some sheets from a friend of mine. They are unfortunately a different color, so that was a poor calculation on my part, but it's looking pretty good, I think. I mean, there's, you know, it's open at the ends, so that's going to be an issue with heat retention when I heat this up a little bit in the wintertime. I'm thinking of spray foaming it, but then that begs the question of how long that tarp's going to last. Then I have to clean out all the spray foam. I know one issue right now is right down the seam here. So it leaks pretty severely. So what I'm going to do, if I were to do this again, which I will, then I'm going to make this middle strut here, this middle pole, taller than the other ones. So that way it kind of acts like a little bit of a peak on a roof, whereas now it's actually the shortest one. So it's all the water is funneling in to the middle, which is then open for a seam, as you can tell. And it's not the straightest, unfortunately. It's pretty good on this side. I should have taken more time to straighten it out on the other side. As you can see here, it got pretty wonky near the end. So yeah, that's the rundown on the build so far. I did miss one or two little screws. So I found it was easier if you just take the old self-tap and screw. This is the regular, what is it, 8 by 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch self-tappers. They worked pretty well on this. I did have to pre-drill a couple of holes. So I want to put a screw about here. I know it's relatively in line. So I push on it. Feels pretty good. You want to go where it feels kind of like the hardest, right? So I'm gonna say that's right about there. And I was wrong. So because I was wrong and it turned to the left, that means it's slightly more to the right. So what I'll do, use the same hole and slightly angle it to the right. There, worked in that case anyway. If you want, you can come back, tape these over, maybe spray foam them from the inside. If I was a smarter man, I'd probably be using like a rubber washer on them. I did actually look up the cost of what it would be to do something similar to this, but in a stick frame with like plywood siding. And that would of course include paint, and I even included a like $50 for screws and stuff like that. Cause here's the thing, like it's actually cheaper and for a longer term building, because it's about like $1,200 to do it that way in Canadian anyway. So this shelter, of course, is reusing or recycling a crappy old tarp tent And all the metal for this cost approximately 900 and, well, it would be $1,000 because I missed about 3 sheets. 3 sheets short on that. So yeah, it's about $1,000 to cover the old tarp pole. But here's the reason, of course, why you would want to do it this way, because the tarp tent is it's like an existing structure, and the tarp tent itself is a temporary structure. Whereas if you go start framing something, then you start talking about like building regulations and codes and all that fancy municipal zoning regulation stuff. So I know it's kind of attractive to put up a tarp tent because it's a temporary shelter, but they only last a year, and I don't know how it would go putting like this roofing material on. If you're in a pretty lax area, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, you can take this down. That's the thing. Like you can pretty much fold this up like a regular tent, especially if you like take the time to get everything straight. And that way, you just go ahead and number each of the panels and each of the poles and each of the ties and all that sort of stuff. You could actually take this all apart, pack it up, and go and put it somewhere else. Like these roofing panels literally just stack, and you can stack 50 of them, and it looks like the same size as one. It takes up the same amount of area, so it folds up really nice if you were to do that sort of thing. If you have any ideas, go ahead, share them in the comments. It'd be really helpful, because I'm sure a lot of people have these old tarp sheds that just blew away one day, and they were left with the scrap metal that they and all their tools inside that they want to get covered up. So this was actually a really quick way of doing it. It only took me maybe 3 days to get this all together. One other concern is the length of gap here at the bottom. So I figure what I'll do, because these panels, I counted them, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 flat sections from a triangular section. So what I'll do is I'll take one whole panel, and because this is just too wide, and so you double it up on the other side, so that's 4. I'll cut a panel here, 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 and then maybe cut off the excess. That way I can tuck this much up underneath this bottom section, and that'll kind of flow out, and you can kind of bend it outwards, and that will do a little bit better as far as wind protection and snow drifting and grass clippings getting in, stuff like that goes. Alrighty, there it is. So that's how the outer rim turned out. Not too bad. I gotta cut that string off. A little bit of a gap in these corners here, but I'm not gonna worry too much about that. Once the snow will kind of get up over it and block out most of that, so that'll be fine. This side, because there's the extra triangular section there, it's a little bit more flattened out, but shouldn't be an issue. I'm not going to worry about it. Water pooled up on the top of this here. So what's happening is it gets in here. Now I'm not sure if it gets in where this crack is. I don't think so. I think it's just kind of like the corner. You can see like how these corners laid down. That's a little bit of spray foam. I already tried with some RV roof sealer over it. This tape doesn't like to turn at all. You can heat it up and press it down, and some of it'll stick, but the problem becomes when it gets cold, it'll just shrink again. So I'm having that issue, as you can see over here. So these little patches over the screws, you kind of still have to press them down. You see, like there's some butyl rubber that's stuck underneath, but it
it still leaks. So that probably is not a good solution then. Alright, so I've got the heater running in the building now to dry off the ice and moisture, because what happens is, make sure to, when you're leaning on it, lean on these places with the posts. The moisture stays on here, and you can see it's beginning to rust. There's quite a bit actually, especially because this kind of bows down in the center. Doing this yourself, like I say, make sure, don't do it like I did and just put them on. Jack up the middle posts, jack up the middle one like 2 inches, do like 1.5 inches, an inch, or whatever, just like lay it out so that these go similar to a normal roof. After trying the Rust-Oleum leak seal, kind of basically a Flex Seal style spray on rubber, you can see, and also the RV roof sealing liquid silicone or whatever they call it. I don't know if you can see in the corners here, there is some moisture that was underneath. Now I'm not sure if it leaked through it, but I know what was happening. In these corners, especially this corner with this seam, air would bubble up as I was applying it, and it'd bubble, and then that would be a hole. So I don't know exactly why it was doing that. Probably something to do with the extra heat and pressure coming up from inside. But nonetheless, it could have been just water that was trapped under there to begin with. But nonetheless, you can see this butyl tape. This is, I would say, a failure. Yeah, you can see, look at that cream. Just peeling off this sealer. So the roof sealer, the RV roof sealer that's white, along with the Rust-Oleum sealer that's this amber color for some reason. I thought it was supposed to be clear, but you can see that moisture under there. Yeah, see, that was right underneath that tape. Well, in trying to use some old caulking, I found it was a little expired. It's like a really stretchy loaf of bread. Alright, we're trying that again because the caulking has once again failed me, like everything else and every woman I've ever loved. Yeah, it's lifting up. So, bubbling at the corners again. So I think I figured out kind of what my problem is. When this thing rocks, yeah, you see the gaps. When you rock it, it twists and moves and lifts this tape up. You can see the adhesion level of the tape. Actually, it's pretty good. I've cleaned a lot of it up. But, and what you do, the easiest way to clean this stuff off, heat it up, take a piece of tape, just dab it up. Alright, I have determined what I'm gonna do. So I took all the tape off, got the butyl off. This tape, I believe, was a mistake. I think the main reason for this failing is just the fact that when it gets cold at night, this stuff shrinks, it pulls together, and then it pulls up from these corners, because I found water in every one of these corners. But however, right in the middle, it was fine. So flat surfaces, this stuff would do alright. But if I wanted to do better with an RV roof tape, I would buy a Eternabond. But I've got a different type of tape now. Went to Home Depot, home desperate. And so what I think I'm going to do is, I've got this unscrewed. I'm going to lift this up underneath, caulk all the way in between, and then screw it back down. Also, here and here in these corners, make sure it's nice and tight. That caulking squishes out nice and good. Nice and good. Perfect redneck grammatical. And then I got the tape, and I'm going to tape over it as well. Alright, so this is the tape that I had decided to use. It seems to be sticking into these corners a lot better. Like it's literally holding water here right now. Went all along the seams, so hopefully this is going to work better. I tried caulking underneath, and it worked here on a nice dry day, but it rained, so a lot of the caulking on those seams is gone. I think it's a Nashua brand weather seal or waterproofing tape. It seems to be using the same type of butyl that the Eternabond tape is using, and I think the main issue I was having was just that cheap butyl tape lifting up because of the backing on it shrinking in the cold weather. I think that was the main issue, and I've had issues on that trailer there as well with that same stuff. I don't think I'll be buying it again. But what I'm going to do now is go over these areas where the water sits with some wax. Here it is. It's just regular toilet bowl wax rings. I'm probably going to add a little bit of boiled linseed oil to this as well to harden it up. If you've seen my other video on vehicle undercoating, it's the same stuff. So I think it works great. I think it looks great. So I'm going to probably just go over that tape with this. Now, I like this undercoating gun that comes with the metal canister. So just heat it up on a hot plate or something, get her all down to a liquid, stir it good, and then we'll spray it on. Pretty done, but that's how she turned out. I'm fairly happy with it. I'm not worried too much about drips and runs and whatever. I just want the darn thing to be sealed once and for all. You can kind of get it to do what you want. It remains greasy for a little while, so yeah, there you have it. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised it's handling the snow load. Yeah, okay. Well, swap over to my indoor shoes. Alright, finally. I don't see any wet spots. So, it's been kind of melting and thawing and whatnot here and there. So, obviously we've got some drift in, but that's not anything we can be concerned about for the roof. If I were to do the sides, that would be a different story. Eventually I will. Eventually these tarps are going to be broke. It's quite a bit of gap. I could use the broken tarp, try and cover that off a bit more. It doesn't seem to get in the front, but we got high winds here. Main issue was just getting this thing dry. And you know what? This is now, I would say, been a success. So, rather than using that cheap butyl tape that I was using, now I see the best way to do it is Nashua Weather Seal tape. It's a butyl tape. It has this kind of gray backing. And this reminds me an aluminum backing and sort of gray adhesive. I mean, here's the thing. Now I don't know if it was the caulking in the seam, the tape over it, or the wax layer that I put over top of that's keeping the moisture out, or the fact that perhaps the moisture is indeed ice and it's not actually pooling anywhere that it can leak into its seam. That's a possibility as well. However, it's unlikely because you know what? It feels pretty warm in here despite, and all the heat would rise that's coming out of the ground and whatnot. So I expect there is a little bit of moisture at least up there right now. And it has been raining the past couple of days over top of the snow. So anyway, at this point, I'm going to call this a success. I don't think there's anything more that I could do. So you got a tent like mine, let's say, right? End pole, lowest point. And then graduate higher and higher to the middle point. And then back down lower and lower if you're going to be doing a seam. If you got long enough panels, then just go right for it. But whatever you do, make sure that wherever there's a seam, it's at the highest point. Especially if water pools. Now, it would even be better if you had a tent that was a normal angled slope of a roof, as opposed to this semicircular fashion. Because then you could just literally take the roofing panels and do a proper roof, and then proper siding. But obviously, I don't have that. And I expect a lot of you don't either. But this works. So, take that for what it's worth. And yeah, it's more expensive. Boy, is there ever a lot of downfall. But yeah, take that for what it's worth. It is more expensive, but you're never going to have to do it again. It's pretty much a permanent fixture now. I mean, it can still come down. Just unscrew it, you know. It's the ceiling, I did approximately, you would need approximately 3 cans of spray foam. So like this style, like big gap filler, to do the whole thing on this. This is, I think, was it 10 foot tall, 8 foot tall, 10 foot tall, by like 12 feet wide or something. Take that for what it's worth. Thanks for watching my channel. If you have any comments on what I could use or what I could have done better, please let me know. Because I'm going to have to be tearing this down, moving it somewhere else, probably setting it up again. And if it works out that I can pick up another shell, cheap, and maybe some other cheap roofing panels, I might do this again, because it'd be nice to have like another barn style thing like this that I can just solely use for like sandblasting or painting or something like that, you know. Maybe not painting. I don't know if I'd ever be able to get it sealed enough, but maybe not. I don't know. Like if I spray foamed everything, like everything here. There's some water. There will be some condensation probably, though. I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, maybe I could spray foam it or something like that too if you wanted to add some extra bit of insulation, but I don't think it's really worth it. I mean, at that point, maybe just, of course, then again, you know, this is much bigger than a shipping container. Ideas. You know what? Put them in the comments. I'd be glad to read them, because I've got all sorts of ideas for building things that would work, and you know, it's all about the budget, right? Especially living in this communist country. All right, later, guys.